Why hazy though?
It's honestly, that's what they had at, at the, I keep wanting to say Weetabix, Publix, Weetabix.
Weetabix. Publix, Weetabix.
Yeah, I'm like regional groceries, something or
No,
other.
I'm just saying, can it be athletic and hazy at the same time? Feels like those are cross purposes.
It's actually not all that hazy. But we do need to tell everybody just tuning in that it's a special edition of Cord Killers. I made a post saying that the news was so big we couldn't wait till Tuesday, which actually, to be honest, is probably accurate. But then I followed it up with, I swear it's not that I've got a conference that we're working around.
Which it is, but both can be true. They
Why
both
not
get
both?
like yeah. This is my biggest pet peeve when people start arguing. Is it this or that? Is that usually it's like yes. The answer
not
is both.
Yeah.
Like the argument might be around which percentage to allocate to which.
So I tried to join the chat and it's making me do authentications, which is good.
Yeah, you're at a security conference. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Tom, don't forget to unmute yourself.
Don't forget to unmute myself later, not now.
During the interstitials.
Right. No, thank you.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Yep, got it.
Okay, so in theory, I could say
Unmute myself later.
hello.
That joke doesn't work because I was muted for part of it. But I was checking my mute and it worked.
Ryer will do that sometimes. He'll do a bit and then he'll chuff and I'm like, that was not for me and it was not for the audience. He goes, yeah, it was for me. I was like, well, why did you do that to everyone else?
Remember, there are others. There are others.
Yeah.
Man, I can't wait for full experience. All right. We ready?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Ready.
Welcome, everyone, to Cord Killers. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we are just trying so hard to figure out who killed all the cords because we just want to watch what we want, where we want, whenever we want. Brian, who did it?
Oh my gosh, we don't know who did it, but we know what they did. We somehow, in an ironic twist of fate, after covering, like Icarus, covering micro dramas so close to the source, I fear we've become one. So we had to do this episode days early because our thruple has collapsed into a duopoly.
I know. I'm gonna miss our weekly update on the love triangle of Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Netflix. But yes, we spared no expense to send Brian Brushwood to Florida to cover the fact that Netflix has backed out of the Paramount Warner Brothers thruple. That is, of course, our supply run story.
Supply run.
So Thursday, Warner Brothers determined that Paramount's increased offer, they increased it to $31 a share, was now superior to the previously accepted Netflix offer. And Warner gave Netflix 4 days to respond. And Netflix said, I don't need 4 days. I'm out. Netflix's co-CEO Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters put out a statement that said, we've always been disciplined. And at the price required to match Paramount Skydance's latest offer, the deal is no longer financially attractive. So we are declining to match. This transaction was always a nice to have at the right price, not a must have at any price. As I mentioned, Paramount raised the offer from $30 to $31 a share and agreed to pay the breakup fee because Warner and Netflix had a prenup. So Paramount will pay the $2.8 billion that Warner owes Netflix for the deal falling through. Paramount also added a bunch of guarantees of its own. If this deal falls apart, Paramount's going to pay $7 billion, unless they can find some sugar mama to pay it. And if the deal does not close before September 30th, Paramount will raise its offer by 25 cents a share for each quarter, it doesn't close. That's every 3 months. It doesn't close after September 30th. They raise the offer by 25 cents a share. Paramount says it believes it can save about $6 billion in what it calls synergies after the deal. Most people call those synergies layoffs because the combined company won't need all those people. And then there's, of course, the thing we told you about previously on Cord Killers. Deadline had an interview with Paul Anka way back in December that they just published last month, February. He's promoting an album, Inspirations of Life and Love. And they asked him about the whole Netflix Warner thing. And he said, who knows? Ted Sarandos is very close with Zaslav. Sometimes these guys do each other a favor. It's an old Vegas trick. You want to sell a hotel, you go to your buddy and say, give me an offer just to pretend you're in the game. They float it out there and it starts this bidding war. I still think it's going to be Paramount that winds up with it. And man, Brian, Paul Anka was right. It was Paramount.
Paul Anka was so right and so on the nose, so in the money. I couldn't believe it. Lots to unpack on this. First of all, synergies, nice play. Second of all, everybody who was howling about working for Netflix, no sooner did the news break than I started seeing headlines about the grim realities of now working for Paramount. It's like, what did you, where are you at?
Oh, yeah. No, all the Republican politicians that had been threatening an antitrust investigation of Netflix and Warner sent all their talking points over to the Democrats. Like, these are yours now. And the Democrats, like, we are going to have an antitrust investigation of Paramount and Warner. So that's still going on. Also, don't forget that Paramount's offer is for everything. Netflix was not going to buy the cable networks. So CNN was not going to go to Netflix. That was still left to be sold to somebody else. But Paramount's getting everything. So now you have a bunch of people speculating about what's going to happen once they own both, which would put CNN and CBS in the same organization. CNN's chairman and CEO Mark Thompson wrote to employees Thursday, I'd suggest that you don't jump to conclusions about the future until we know more, hoping to keep everyone from just quitting and leaving, I think. And then Ted Sarandos, just on Sunday, our interview with Bloomberg was published, says, in regards to the president weighing in on the side of Paramount or not, Sarandos said it's a lot cheaper to make noise than it is to actually raise your bid, so they tried that path first. Once it was clear that we weren't in the CNN business, it was a lot less interesting. He, meaning the president, didn't care much about our deal. So Sarandos thinks like, yeah, it wasn't the president putting their thumb on the scale that caused this. It was just Paramount's relentless pursuit for money. And they basically said, we went at what we thought was the right offer and we weren't willing to go pay more for it.
So let's unpack the Paul Anka hypothesis, not just so much for being a prediction that turned out to be right, but an indication, a lens through which to view this whole deal as performative and relatively unserious from the get-go. And I think now that we have this prism to see it through, then the fact that Netflix was kind of curious, saying, yeah, we'll take a chunk of it for this amount of cash, and then just really just acted kind of flippantly. The whole time during the negotiation, Netflix maintained their "we don't care, you're kind of a six anyway," attitude the entire way. And we just literally have all this cash laying around. And at the time, I thought, wow, that is a very confident, dominant position move. That's an alpha male move for Netflix to do. But if the whole thing is a gag, kind of, if the whole thing is a puff up the importance, start a bidding war, then it's like, if I'm Netflix, it's like, well, why do I want to get potential egg all over my face? And the answer is you won't, because you're going to keep it at arm's length. You're going to maintain your credibility, your position, and then either Paramount comes up with the money or you got the deal of a century or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and Netflix did better their offer once by converting it to be all cash, but they never raised it. So when Sarandos says, we had the right number and that was the number and we weren't going to go up, that bears out in their behavior. Certainly, they meant that because as soon as Warner said you have 4 days, they said we don't need it. There's no other offer we're going to give. But, that was the first time they said that, or else Paramount wouldn't have been out there working so hard to convince Warner that they had a superior offer. That doesn't mean that Paul Anka was right. Like, that is not evidence that Paul Anka was right. But you can say that if Paul Anka was right, that would also be the kind of thing that Netflix would do in that situation. I don't think it's so bad that Netflix never had any intention of acquiring Warner. I don't think they go through all of this if they weren't okay with the bluff being called and them ending up with Warner. I think that was a serious plan and they were ready to act on it. But I'm not against the idea that maybe both things can be true. Netflix was okay with acquiring Warner, but also okay with Paramount getting it if their buddy Zaslav got enough money out of him. I know that Zaslav is way more excited to work with Netflix than he is with Paramount, no matter what he says in public. So I wouldn't expect him to stay on with Paramount, although they've offered him, all kinds of potential roles afterwards. I just don't see him getting along in that corporate culture. Whereas he might have stayed along with Netflix. He might not have there either, but there was better chance of that.
Well, the part I would love to re-examine through this lens is the whole aspect of how shruggish the Ted Sarandos's responses were about, like, well, how much of Hollywood glitz and glamour are you going to protect for the heritage of the blah, blah. He's like, I don't know, everything will be fine. I think whatever your Hollywood does, that's what we'll do.
I mean, honestly, the first responses were like, it'll be fine. And then later, once the heat was turned up and they had too many uncomfortable conversations at cocktail parties, they said, oh, well, we won't do anything stupid. We'll still put movies in theaters. That's an entire, they started to add the explanations later. I know that people who listen to this show are immediately thinking, so what does this do to my HBO Max subscription price? Where I was always under the assumption that Netflix would keep HBO Max as a separate service, and Netflix said that's what they would do, and I believed them, where HBO Max would be available on its own, and Netflix would be available on its own, and there would be a bundle that you could pay for. We'd give you a discount on both of them. I didn't expect there to be a price rise that wouldn't have happened otherwise. I don't know about Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus Showtime is the product. You get Showtime bundled into Paramount. Is that what it's going to be? Paramount Plus movies? Is it going to be Paramount Plus Premium? Are you going to combine Showtime and HBO together? Or are you just going to roll everything from Paramount Plus into HBO Max and say like, okay, now HBO Max has Star Trek and Dexter?
See, too complicated. In a bold move, indicative of like the Star Trek franchise boldly going, they're going to do the right thing and rename the app Max, which will mean all of that stuff.
We don't get a transition Paramax name. It just goes straight to Max.
No need. Max. Yeah. And then they'll have the Disney pillars underneath.
Max. Max time.
To be honest, I say this just as a joke to get a rise out of someone, but I mean, I can see that working so imagine there's only 3 colors in your streaming space and Amazon, right? You think red, you're thinking Netflix. You think blue, you're thinking Disney. But then and then green is Hulu underneath Disney. But then just black, it's Max, and it's all of those as the verticals.
Yeah, you get HBO, Paramount, Showtime, and Warner, all in one Max service. Get the maximum.
You're like, what word expresses this much value in just one subscription? God dang it, I think I talked myself into...
I think you kind of did, yeah. I think that might be where we're going. I don't know if there's a price increase on that. They might just like take all the Paramount Plus subscribers and smush them in there, and anybody that's got both just gets a deal, or it goes up. But HBO Max is so expensive to begin with. They don't have a lot of headway to raise the price, and they'll need headway to raise the price in the future. So they may not want to do it right out of the gate.
Marymount Amber Bros
Discovery. Yeah. Thank you, Moo Cow. I think you nailed it. Well done. Well, and always with these sorts of deals, I hasten to remind people, because people don't remind you enough, that the deal didn't close. Just like we said back in December when Netflix agreed to acquire Warner, the deal isn't closed yet. They don't have it. In this case, I don't believe it's not going to close. I think it will close, but it won't close before September. So when you turn on your HBO Max or your Paramount subscription, don't expect to start seeing the other one in there yet. Give them some time, because it's going to be until later this year at the earliest that this deal closes. And even then, it'll take a while for them to decide what they're going to do and start the wheels moving on any consolidations or anything there. You are going to see fewer movies made. I think that is kind of a secret part of this as well. Paramount was committed to like 30 releases a year. Warner did not have a commitment, and I think they can now fudge on that and say, yes, we'll be doing more than 30 releases a year between these two studios that we now own.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't think about that. That actually may be kind of an antitrust thing, because I'm sure it's awfully convenient for the dominant player to make sure that every opening weekend has no significant competition.
Yeah. I don't know how much of an antitrust concern it is because of the decline of the movie business, but it certainly is.
Right. I mean, it's like fighting over the last penny.
It depends on how you define it. If you define movies as theatrical, there's an antitrust question here. I'm not sure that it is an antitrust violation, but you have got a significant amount of theatrical exhibition under one roof now, and that might be worth looking into. If you look at movies as all the ways you can get movies, streaming TV, et cetera, then it's not. I didn't think Netflix and HBO Max was a monopoly in that particular situation, because Netflix doesn't have as much of a dominant part of the viewing percentage as YouTube and others. And I think that it's even less when you combine Paramount and HBO Max, because they were much smaller. This is turned out to be AT&T tries to buy T-Mobile. The government weighed in that case and said, we don't think that's allowed. That makes you too powerful. And instead, T-Mobile and Sprint combined. They were the bottom two carriers. Here, it's not the bottom two, but it's two smaller carriers that are going to combine instead of having the bigger one eat one of the smaller ones.
Well, and by the way, there's part of me that thinks, like, how arbitrary that we can anthropomorphize these entities and picture them, but there's a book, the Master Algorithm, that essentially it eventually starts off sounding very scientific, eventually kind of sounds like high thoughts, but it does seem that there are certain archetypes, like in general humans do mind biggest thing getting even bigger. We don't seem to mind two smallest things teaming up to be we
to become bigger thing.
We just like three main competitors and some outliers. That's about it.
Indeed. That is why we have housed three main competitors together in our Patreon. Me, Brian, and you. We're the three biggest Cord Killers competitors, and we all come together at patreon.com/Cord Killers.
Yes. Man, I'm trying to break that sentence apart and pick something up with it. But you know what? That's not my job, because you made the sentence. I looked at the sentence, and now it's the job of the people at home, our fine bosses, to head on over to Patreon.
The third part of this triumvirate. Exactly.
It makes as much sense as the love triangle between Paramount, Warner, and Netflix.
Listen, if you're having a hard time with the assignment Brian just gave you, you can buy your way out of it. You can buy your way out of it. You don't have to come up with an answer. Just support us at patreon.com/Cord Killers, and we'll call it even.
Hey, and shouts out to what I like to call the financially literate, the people who believe that inflation is a real thing, and the folks who looked at how much, you know what, here's a fun game. Find out, did you know that you're paying Cord Killers? Find out how much you're paying Cord Killers at patreon.com/Cord Killers. Spoiler alert, it's going to be less than you thought you were paying, and you're going to feel guilty. Don't let it happen again. Get ahead of your conscience. There's a deadline coming. Get ahead of your conscience and raise your pledge to whatever a lunch costs. Whatever you spend on your lunch.
Yeah, perfect.
We want one of those per month.
Yeah, buy us a lunch. patreon.com/cordkillers. Shall we move on to the search party then?
Yes, indeed.
Hey man, don't say they never gave Generation X anything. There are 2 different G.I. Joe movies in early development, Brian. Deadline has confirmed that the Righteous Gemstones star and creator Danny McBride has the deal to write a treatment, apparently, and then American Ultra writer Max Landis has written a treatment, and both of them are being considered. Well, one has to be written yet before it will be, but yeah, they're both under consideration.
Yeah. Do you think the Max Landis one is intriguing? Because we both really enjoyed Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. And I think the winningest move on G.I. Joe is a movie that you go into expecting to LOL over and then find yourself unironically believing in something at the end. The same lane that they're trying to go with what I assume Rogers the Musical that we keep hearing in development at the Disney properties.
Yeah, and by the way, the studio here is Paramount, the aforementioned Paramount, so it could be a Warner Brothers movie by the time it comes out. Who knows? Apple TV and Netflix will both stream the 8th season of F1 Drive to Survive. Drive to Survive kind of credited with popularizing F1 or increasing the popularity of Formula One racing in the United States and other places in the world where it wasn't already hugely popular. Apple has the rights to stream the Formula One races. So this is an interesting combination where Apple TV gets to stream Drive to Survive, but it's non-exclusive. It'll be on Netflix as well.
I'm trying to figure out how that, well, I mean, I assume that was the cost to get the gig for Apple. I don't know. That seems win-win.
Yeah, I feel like it's win-win. Netflix loses a little bit in not having the exclusivity here. But I think the idea is rising tide lifts all boats. If Apple can get people hyped up with Drive to Survive, then Formula One becomes more popular and they tell their friends, and their friends don't have Apple TV, but they do have Netflix and they watch Drive to Survive on Netflix, and then they want to get Apple TV, and it's a virtuous cycle after that.
Well, and keep in mind, Netflix was at different levels in its development cycle for live critical events. You know, we saw them intentionally build up a reputation for live stuff with a certain level of stakes on it, and then it could get speculative, and it tried some experimental stuff, and sometimes it didn't work out so well. So it's a miracle that Netflix essentially caused a sport to become beloved in the United States to also secure the complete domination of streaming rights to that one thing. Would have been supremely lucky. You'd have to start a religion.
Or, Netflix has all this cash available suddenly, maybe it'll just buy Apple.
That's right.
I only say that because everyone for years was saying Apple should buy Netflix. And I just, I never thought that Netflix wanted to sell itself. Neither does Apple. But, if the first made sense, why wouldn't the second?
Turnabout's fair play.
Have you heard about Heated Rivalry, Brian? We've talked about it a couple of times, but it is
from what I hear, it's hot, steamy action on the ice.
Hot, steamy action on the ice is exactly right. It is a hockey romance that took the world by storm, and season 2 has now been scheduled for April 2027. The only negative amongst Heated Rivalry's fans is that they have to wait until April 2027 to get their next season. So we're not getting it this year, getting it next year.
Yeah, dude, get in line behind us waiting on Pluribus sometime in 2030.
Yeah, or Winds of Winter. Zootopia 2 has passed a Minecraft movie as 2025's highest grossing domestic release, now that all the numbers are in, with $424 million. Does seem like the bright spot for theaters these days are all ages movies.
Yep, I think it's just and it's interesting because your play in those situations is just safety. If you can maybe have a good message, fine. If you could be good, that would be sweet. But in general, everybody's really buying a ticket to themselves. It's like, it is 2 hours of me and my niece and whoever else.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? Is it something the kids and the parents won't mind going to. Because it's either got enough entertainment like Zootopia, or, you know, maybe the parents actually like playing Minecraft because they grew up playing Minecraft because it's been around long enough, something like that. But it certainly seems to be a theme. Also, fourth season of Ted Lasso is underway and expected to premiere in August. So we've been getting set pictures this August. Timeline was not a release from Apple. It was Hannah Waddingham on a red carpet saying like, yeah, we're supposed to be back in August. Am I allowed to say that? And then no one told her to retract it. So I guess it's coming in August. And Netflix has set May 21st for the premiere of The Burrows, which is from the mind of the Duffer Brothers. It's a supernatural mystery series, but it was created by Jeffrey Addis and Will Matthews. So I guess it's more from Addis and Matthews' mind, but it's in the Duffer Brothers production camp. And I don't think this is meant to be in the same universe as Stranger Things.
Boy, that ability to press the Stranger Things adjacent button must be so crippling for all of the marketing teams. They've got to want to touch that so bad. And then meanwhile, the people who are working on the Burrows are like, it's really not, guys. Please don't misrepresent, because
they just like, yeah, but we could say Duffer Brothers, right? Because you're part of the Duffer Brothers. Like, yeah, we created it, but
yeah. Well, but also it's like, it affects the story. And I don't mean just like in a way that we subjectively feel. I mean, I'm reading a lot of these marketing books where they talk about these framing studies where something could be objectively superior to another thing, but the experience of the customer leading up to encountering it, those early priming things affect it. And if you expect a Stranger Things-esque thing, and for example, what was that? I forget the name of the show, but the creator of Cowboy Bebop, used a similar, he has a new thing that was on HBO, another anime. It's not at all in the same visceral ballpark as Cowboy Bebop, but he used a similar color palette and style choice in the album art. And I wonder how much of that caused me to drop off after the very first episode, because I wanted it to be like one thing and it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, we should warn people that the next segment, Buried Treasure, is in no way similar to the movie Casablanca.
Most people want to know why they suddenly got rich.
Buried treasure.
Play it again, Brian. No, Buried Treasure is actually the segment of the show where we look at the things we've been watching or enjoying or entertaining us, and we pass them along to you. Brian, you've got a field trip, so to speak, to talk about.
Well, you know what? Before that, I want to give a little tip of the hat to 2008. A thing that everybody, or some people know that I'm doing is I've been living in 2008 for the last 2 months, going back and doing a rewatch of all of the original run of Scam School episodes, giving production notes, behind the scenes stuff, talking a lot about the day you and I met and all the work that Eileen did. And I'll be danged if one of the segments that I would do, because I never knew which order the episodes would come out at, but I like the idea of saying, don't forget, join us next week because we're going to blank. So I would just make up fake ones. And sometimes they sounded vaguely real, like convert nickel metal hydride batteries into I don't know, lithium ion. But then other times they would be fanciful. But in this case, I just heard myself casually mention, as if the whole world should know about it, well, we have a deadline coming up and we're going to teach you how to convert your television set to digital using only a Sony Walkman and a blah, blah, blah. But I thought, oh my God, this fascination of content and the way it's distributed, that proto Cord Killers vibe was there from day one.
That's amazing.
I think it was the episode after you were in was the one that it was.
Well,
on.
there you go. That fits the origin story quite well, right? And that was a real thing, that people were having to convert their televisions to digital if they hadn't upgraded to a new television that could support digital.
Yeah, I found myself having to explain ancient history on the stream. I'm like, okay, you had conversion fever had overtaken everyone in 2008.
Oh, and that gives me an idea. Cordkillers@gmail.com. If any of you have someone in your family who has a digital converter box still in operation on an old tube TV. I want to know, and pictures as a bonus. Cordkillers@gmail.com. Now, back to my originally scheduled toss to you, Brian. I hear you might be taking a field trip.
Yeah, so I'm in the Tampa area, and in St. Petersburg, Florida, I believe, is the Salvador Dali Museum. And I'm going to try to arrange a field trip for anybody who wants to go at this conference, because Salvador Dali was, surrealism and his work rose to prominence at a very confusing time in media. It was a time when, photography studios started popping up in the late 19th century. And so a counterpunch was cubism. Like, oh, I see factual representation of how someone looks. Can you represent them from all angles at once? And likewise, when you see Salvador Dali's art, some of it looks photorealistic, and his painting skills were that good. But also, a thing that you can only see at the museum is he would sometimes, the right call was, well, I'll just cut this picture out of a magazine and stick it on there. And who knows what usage rights or ownership or copyright. It was the Wild West. And it feels like, I don't know, this is like I'm going to church basically, and I'm going to let say Saint Dali explain to me, give me wisdom in this confusing time of AI.
Yeah. More on that a little later in the show as well. Speaking of confusing times of AI, it's been a minute since I threw out a Chinese drama for folks. So my buried treasure this week is called How Dare You, available on the iQIYI app, IQIYI, available worldwide. So you can download wherever you are. It's not something where you have to like VPN or anything like that. How Dare You's premise is a woman is in a meeting and she is tricked into being the one who has to create a pitch for a webtoon that their company has gotten the rights to adapt into a television show. And the story is full of plot holes and tropes and cliches. And she's on the subway on her way home, just trying to skim through and see what she can salvage out of this book when her birthday wish comes true. Flash to earlier in the day, she had blown out a candle on a birthday cake and wished that she could just go into this story and fix everything. Well, guess what, Brian? The rest of the TV show is about her being thrust into the story, which is a sort of, period-ish drama. And she meets someone else who has also been transmigrated into the story, who is aware of it. They discover each other by speaking English, and the other one understands it and speaks English back. And they're like, oh my gosh, you must be from the present as well. What do we do now? And it's pretty funny. It's got a good sense of humor. It, again, is called How Dare You on iQIYI.
Awesome.
You like that premise?
I do.
Yeah.
Anytime that we're following a thread and we hit that moment where, and they're not the first one to think of it, and it's like that's always fun.
Yeah, and I like the sort of like, you guys watch these shows all the time. They're full of tropes and they all do the same thing. So does the main character, and they're gonna play with that idea for you. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, please email us cordkillers@gmail.com. I feel like I should mention Daily Tech News Show, Brian, because...
You know what? I'm glad you are, because there are people, I have to remind myself that there are people who it's never the right time for them to peek into the universe next door, and they're vaguely aware, like maybe they know the Brian-verse, or, it'd be interesting. I wonder if we have anybody who watches us who only knows us as the Cord Killers guys.
Yeah. If you would like to see what else we do... every day, Monday through Friday, we endeavor at Daily Tech News Show to bring you all the important things happening in technology so you don't have to read about all of them. In 30 minutes or less, we're going to tell you, here's the big story of the day. Here's what you need to know about it. We're going to put it in context. We're going to tell you, here are the things that other people aren't thinking about. And just a bunch of stuff that'll make you look smart if you know about it. Little tidbits of like, this is coming, this is happening, this deal finally closed, all of that kind of stuff. If you want to be the smartest person in the room on technology, that's what Daily Tech News Show is for. It is tech news from people who use technology rather than hyped up clickbait from people who don't. Check it out at dailytechnewsshow.com.
Daily Tech News Show, because they didn't know how to spell a new what? We'll see.
Sure. That too. Now let's scan the horizon.
I'm saying that is one of your strengths, is that you legit have seen it all come and go, and you are difficult to impress. You are not prone to hype cycles, and that's one of the beauties of DTNS.
Well, thank you. Yes, that is. I too think that is one of the things that we do well. And if that sounds good to you, Daily Tech News Show, wherever fine podcasts are traded or sold. Now let's scan the horizon.
Send scanning to avoid.
Scanning the horizon!
Well, now, just in time for the big story earlier today, we have Paramount and Warner Brothers streaming numbers from their earnings calls. Subscriptions to Paramount Plus rose 4% from a year ago to hit 78.9 million. Warner Brothers Discovery said in its earnings call that it will expand its password sharing crackdown globally this year to try to bring in more money, and that HBO Max has now reached 131.6 million. So let's see, that's 209 million. How many subs does Netflix has? You know, and obviously there's some overlap. 209 million, even if it didn't have any overlap, would be 100 million less than Netflix.
Yeah. So again, we like that story of two littlest brothers teaming up to have a chance against the big one.
To get a little bigger. The U.S. Federal Communications Commission has given the go-ahead for two of the U.S. biggest cable providers, Charter Communications and Cox Communications, to merge. This acquisition was announced in May of last year. If you're like, wait, didn't that already happen? It got announced in May. The FCC has just now said, okay, yes, you could do that, but there are still more regulatory approvals needed, so the merger isn't happening yet.
How old is that? I guess that infrastructure is probably 1950s, 1970s.
50s? No. It's
wait. So in the 50s, it would be CATV, community shared antenna.
Yeah, but that was in very few places. That would have been
replaced entirely,
most of what
right?
Charter and Cox, the oldest stuff that Charter and Cox is running on might be 80s era when they really started doing the build outs of stuff.
That's when they would be digging. Let's take 1982. I was in Katy, Texas, in a new construction subdivision. I'm going to bet that those are still the same copper wires that
probably to the homes, although a lot of what Charter does, and I don't know for sure with Cox, but I'm guessing some of what Cox does runs over fiber. They've replaced a lot of their trunk lines.
Oh, that's right. They almost certainly have overlaid they've rendered insignificant some of that.
Yeah, so they're still running copper into your house, and that part, is as old as the last time they replaced it. But the backhaul is pretty modern at this point. Yeah. AMC CEO Adam Aarons said later this year, AMC will introduce preferred premier seating, where we will block and reserve the best seats in the house in our theaters to be accessed first only by our A-list and Stubbs Premier members. Those are the two VIP tiers within the Stubbs program. So anybody can sign up to Stubbs for free and get some perks. But if you pay for A-List or Stubbs Premier, then you will be able to reserve the better seats at the theater. Meaning that if you're not a member of those, then you won't be able to reserve the better seats in the theaters. You'll have to be sitting up front close or way back in the back.
Some people like open seating on airplanes. Some people like reserved seatings. One thing we all love the most is when all the rich people get in first class and they convince the poverty parade, where we all, for their bemusement, shuffle to the back of the theater while they drink their martinis and redeem their drink coupons. Finally, that experience comes to theaters. Thanks.
Here's the thing about first class. Most of those people didn't pay for it. Most of those people got upgraded for free because they are frequent flyers. I wonder how long before AMC says to the other Stubbs program members that don't pay, oh, we're just going to grandfather you into the ability to choose your seat just this once at the theater. Because, man, when you are in the business of not getting people to come to the theater, I don't think it's a great move to get the person who signs in for the first time in years, looks at your map and goes, wait, I can only sit right up front or in the back. Forget it. I'll do something else. Like, I don't know how that's going to work for them.
Well, and truthfully, that first class does exist. You can pay $12,000 for a single flight if you are a Saudi prince or whatever. But by and large, it exists as a fantasy anchor upgrade where it's like there are the best seats. How much do they cost? Rare, more than you can count. And would you like to pretend for a day to be one of the elite? Then great. And so, to be honest, not the worst play if you're trying to do literally anything interesting to get.
I guess it depends on how many of these seats they block out too. Like if it's only like right in the center of the theater, that's not going to turn me off. But if like huge amounts of the middle are blocked out, that would turn me off. So I'm guessing they won't do that latter one. It'll be just it'll look like a bunch of people bought tickets already and you're like, oh, I could still get a decent seat, just maybe not the best seat.
Yeah, I don't love diverting any number of my thinking calories to general anxiety about where I do and don't get to sit.
I just realized that this is a perk to keep. This is a retention move. Because now that I'm thinking through it, it's going to look to you when you go in to reserve a movie like a bunch of seats sold, but not so many that you can't find a decent seat. And you're going to be like, oh, I guess the theater, I guess this movie is selling. I better buy a ticket. And that's a pretty good seat. May not be the best one in the house, but it's a decent, and you'll get it. And you won't know any different, right? Unless you look into the A-list or the Stubbs Premier programs, and then you'll be like, oh, I could get those seats reserved for me. Oh, that's kind of cool. But for the people who pay, suddenly it's don't leave. Look at what we're doing for you. We're making sure that you always get those center seats that you love so much.
Well, but also it is a face-saving move because it is a fact that if you feel like you're going to where the party's at, nobody wants to be in the beginning of the party. Nobody wants to be too late for the party. We want to be there. We want to be the last piece coming in. And so for a brief moment, if you're a normie off the bus, you look at that map of all the seats and it looks mostly full. You're like, this is going to be a great time. You'll be confused when you go in and it's not as full as you thought, but you won't be thinking about that because now you're there for the movie. To be honest, you know my weakness for corporate conspiracy theories. There were accusations that the Melania movie maybe had more seats bought than people were actually sitting and
I'm shocked that a movie that involved politics had a conspiracy theory around it. Oh, no.
Correct. But my point being, if that were the case and there was no discernible blowback from it, I can picture somebody deciding that a version of that could be institutionalized.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, folks, hold on for the chatter. You've got mail. First of all, big thanks to everybody who is a patron at patreon.com/cordkillers. If you are riding on their coattails with the free version of the show, next time you see a patron in a chat room or on the street, thank them for supporting the show so that you can watch it. Tony is one of those patrons and said, I'm currently a per episode patron. I wanted to upgrade to monthly, but I don't see that option under my membership. How do I upgrade? Tony, I believe this is probably a common misperception of something we've talked about maybe on After Talk and a little bit on this show. Patreon is forcing all creators to convert from per episode to monthly by the end of this year. So the reason you don't see an option for monthly is because it doesn't exist yet for Cord Killers. We have not yet begun the process of converting that. When we do, we'll make sure to mention it here. We'll mention it on After Talk. We'll put a post on the Patreon to say, hey, the process is underway. hang in there for the details, and then we'll do all of that again with the actual details of it. Right now, I'm converting Sword and Laser from per episode to monthly. It's another show I do with Veronica Belmont about science fiction and fantasy. Once that's done and we see how it goes, then I will have learned some things and we'll do it here. But it's not you, Tony. It's us. We have not given you the option to upgrade to monthly, so just hang in there. Right, Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to go on a screed about how there's a wave coming. All your favorite creators are getting screwed.
Yes. Then we asked for suggestions for formats that whip around. The gold zone, red zone style would work for. Scott suggested, how about court TV? Are you guys sure you didn't just invent the news?
That did occur to us like halfway through it. At some point, I'm like, anything could be a story. You just cover it with the same intensity as if it's important.
But
or
when you said that, I remember immediately saying, but the difference is you have everything up on the screen at once. News doesn't always do that. Occasionally it does, but it usually just shows you one thing at a time and jumps from like, and we now go to this story and then we go to that story. What Gold Zone, Red Zone, and Whip Around do is they show you things happening all at the same time. They up to 8 things in the Octobox.
The story is presented as happening in parallel with shifting focus, not in tied up like a story that begins, it completes, and then like maybe it comes back, maybe it doesn't.
And Court TV, it would be a great example of this. Now, I don't know if you could really do it live, but you could probably credibly fake it, where you have multiple interesting court cases happening at the same time. And then you say like, oh, wait, the defense attorney is now getting into the provenance of the glove. So we're going to focus in on that one. But remember, we have the star witness still coming in on this other case down here. So when she comes, we'll take you to that. But let's listen to what they're saying about the glove up on the top right. It totally works. Totally works from where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
All right. Maury wrote in and said, longtime viewer and supporter of Cord Killers. Thank you, Maury. Everyone who sees Maury, please thank Maury. Came across a very well done Star Trek tribute generated by AI. Basically a song about Commander Data with a catchy metal track called Tin Man. Maybe worth a mention on the show to spread the word about it. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Maury. So yeah, we loaded this up. Warning, what you're about to see was generated by a machine. Okay.
Yeah,
the
so we got
great.
all right, it's not bad. This is a bit kind of outside of our wheelhouse, but a thread that we opened up is we are a little bit fascinated by the emerging AI landscape. I mentioned Salvador Dali earlier, and here's what we didn't know. We had a discussion right before we went live, and we'll talk about it more on After Talk for the patrons. But which is currently greater for you guys? Cordkillers@gmail.com. Your annoyance with the letters AI or your interest in knowing which way the wind is blowing culturally on that front? Because we're fascinated by the trends, because this whole show is informed by structure, affecting content. So I don't know where our viewers are at, though.
Yeah. To me, that was first thing I asked Brian is, where is that? And he said YouTube. And I'm like, okay, that is in the outer circle of what we talk about on Cord Killers, which is stuff you watch on television. And yes, maybe you actually watch it on your computer or on a tablet or even on your phone, but it is the television that you're watching on those things versus the opposite, which is TikTok brought an app to your television. That's news. Instagram brought an app to your television, which they just did. That's news. These are things that are not meant for television that are now making the jump. And to me, that's mission creep to say like, oh, we're addressing the vertical video, mobile video. If it does really become a television thing the way YouTube did when YouTube was originally just a mobile thing or a laptop thing, then maybe, but I wouldn't want to do that yet. I'm less concerned about what the content was, but Brian, as you just heard, brought up the idea of like, yeah, but people kind of have feelings some kind of way about AI these days. So is that legitimate content?
I did have a brief flash of a mostly formed thought last night, where I was thinking about rap hip hop culture in the early '80s. You've heard me talk about sampling and so on, but this is exactly the kind of punk move. Like the question my magician brain always asks when there's a new way to do things is like, what could only be done with this? And to have somebody outside of the system where like nobody at Netflix could make anything like this, nobody at Paramount could make anything like this, because you're messing with existing IP and all that stuff. And but now all of a sudden at this fidelity, like we're seeing kind of an ideological hip hop movement, and I think YouTube will be the platform to watch, because I don't know how exactly you take that down.
I mean, you take it down because it's AI generated using the likeness of somebody, and YouTube has some tools for that. They are proto tools, clearly, because this wasn't taken down. I'm guessing Paramount isn't okay with them using it. You said Paramount couldn't do this. Paramount absolutely could do this.
Well, no. They couldn't do that without pissing off their shareholders, because it's not canon. It's not, or I don't know. They could do it, but it would be at the expense of their brand positioning. So they couldn't have an idea.
You mean it would
Sunday
be risky
afternoon
for
and
them to do
publish
it, so they might not want to do it. Yeah,
Yes.
I get
Yes.
that. Yeah. No, I get that. And this probably will get taken down. YouTube is in the process of hunting these things down and getting them taken down. And maybe that bothers you too. Maybe you're like, hey, did all the actors from Star Trek: The Next Generation, Voyager, and elsewhere agree for their likenesses to be used in this way? Because if they didn't, I don't think that should happen. And that is a perfectly rational position for someone to take. I'm curious about all angles of that.
And on top of that, then that makes it illicit. And when something's illicit, artistically, the stock goes up in it.
Yeah. And then our last email from John has some more whip around formats for us. One is fantasy players. This would take the existing whip around formats for sports and just narrow them. So you put in your fantasy football team, and then red zone isn't just red zone for a team going to score. Red zone becomes specifically tailored to you. When your player is doing something, it shows you your player doing that, so you can keep track on it. I think that's a great idea. Prediction markets. This is a genius one from John. You can bet on anything in these prediction markets, and then your prediction markets whip around, or maybe the whip around of the most popular prediction markets, shows you all those events if they're close to, the thing that's going to pay off the prediction or not. Some of them are very long-term and don't lend themselves to this, but lots of them aren't. And then he suggested local traffic cams, security cams from bar entrances. I'm not sure about the legality on that one. Plane or train spotters, whip around, where you go from like various airports as interesting planes for plane and train spotters. Lots of interesting stuff in here from John. Good ideas.
Prediction markets as a lens for the news is 10 out of 10 genius. That has to happen. Imagine something with the intensity of CNBC's Mad Money, and with real money on the line, and suddenly, but you're paying attention to weird details during the State of the Union address, the number of giraffes mentioned or something.
I can already see it, where it's like you've got, will the bill pass on AI in Europe? Will the stock market open at this number? And those are ones that when it's going to happen, and when to go to it to see if it happened or not, and what the predictions are. But then suddenly interrupting everything. Squaw! Uh-oh, we've got a black swan event, bringing it up into the center here. It's a black swan event. We did not know if this was going to happen or not, but it is happening, and we take you to whatever that was, right? That would be amazing.
Well, and then at that point you got the swing of the delta of the day, kind of like you have the ESPN problem. Like ESPN had trouble when it was trying to be all the sports, because that was hard to wrap your mind around, so they kind of codified a few canonical sports. You would have to do the same thing. You'd have to have a financial markets lane of a news, violence or scandal or gossip or whatever. But each day, one of those markets would have objectively the biggest swing in prediction markets from one way to the other. That's fascinating. I think that's great.
Yeah. And also, Mukau pointed out, running ticker on the number of blinks in a speech. But there are predictions of like how many times will the world inflation come up in the State of the Union, and that's perfect for a whip around format where you just have it sitting over there in the corner. You don't have it highlighted, but there's a graphic that's like 5, 6,
Yep.
as they come up. Thank you, John. Those are great.
In the early 20th century, when gambling was considered a scourge and an addiction, there was some anti-gambling pamphleteering where you saw two sweaty men. It was just the edge of a table, their brows and their sweat pouring down, 2 sugar cubes, and they were watching a fly because they were betting on which one the fly was going to land on. By the way, if you want to cheat, the grift is to put insecticide on one of the 2 sugar cubes. But I'm telling you, we're going to see an overcorrection and a swing back. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is, once again, cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live at twitch.tv/nightattack and youtube.com/modernrogue, normally on Tuesdays, not this Tuesday because we had to do the early show, but back a week from Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you then.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Woo!
Yeah.
Now, I realized when someone said you look so golden that you are in Florida.
Well, that's the Sunshine State. California is the Golden State.
No, I was thinking of Mar-a-Lago is just all gold, so it probably just radiates across the entire state.
Well, could be worse. They could be accusing me of having Mar-a-Lago face.
I was thinking more along golden hour since it's about that time for
golden
Brian,
hour
where he is.
Or Brian is the newest member of the Saja Boys.
Gilded Brian.
Huntrix is after him. He's gonna be golden. Well, you don't have a coffee maker to run to. You ready to just jump right into the full experience?
Yeah, we could just jump straight in.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the full experience. This is an experiment every time we do it to see if we can watch just 4 episodes of a television show and see how close we get to being able to talk about it, experience it, feel as if we have watched the entire run. We watched the first, ultimate, lowest, and last episodes. And this week, in our journey with Lost, we are watching the lowest rated episode as far as IMDb viewers are concerned, episode 12 of season 2, Fire Plus Water, which first aired January 25th, 2006. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Tom, so you mentioned that you started watching Lost on a video iPod at micro definition, 320 by 240, right?
Yes, that is right. That is how I watched season 1 of Lost.
So I was on a plane, and in a desperate bid to get it to go, I was able to get it started, and we get in the air, and it stuttered, and then I went away. I switched to a different app, and the Disney Plus thing doesn't go away quietly. It's like, oh, you left Disney Plus. There must be a mistake. Clearly, you meant to keep watching, no matter what. And so right there in the little postage stamp in the corner, it seemed to stream a little bit better. I assume maybe traffic shaping or whatever. But for a brief while, I watched it at about that resolution.
About the size. Let me see if I've got. Yeah, about this size. Is that about?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, although that looks luxurious compared to the real estate that it was on the screen. But Tom, this has to be an artifact of just everybody wanted the main plot to advance at this time or something, because I thought this was a delightful episode. I thought it was sweet, heartfelt. I thought that there's a fine arc that doesn't get completely tied up at the end. In the full experience, we are officially 3 for 3. pilot was the pilot. It was great. The best episode was a great standalone. This one is a good episode that clearly indicates this is a character who's someone, hey, that's the guy I saw on the boat later. And then, oh, that's the guy I saw at the very beginning, and so on. And oh, I guess he did have something off about him. I was amazed. I thought it was great.
Yeah, this clearly is a good episode of television. And like you said, there could be all kinds of theories why it's low rated. Probably it's because this one does the least to illuminate anything about the mysteries on the island. The mysteries on the island are merely set pieces to move you along with the part of the Charlie story that is being told on the island. And I also noticed, and I think this might play into it a little too, if you go by the 3 episodes we have watched for the full experience, Charlie is one of the most important characters in Lost, if not the main character. He investigates the plane, remember? He did something important that was referenced in the 2nd episode we watched. Like, oh, thank goodness Charlie did this. Charlie talked to blah, blah, blah. Charlie is the prime mover. Jack, who I think most people think is, one of the main characters, is kind of like a guardian angel figure from the full experience perspective. He shows up when he's needed at the very beginning and to take the phone call in the last episode we watched and here to be like, Charlie, you've got to do something different. I will give you wisdom. And then I disappear. But Jack doesn't stick around in any of the stories that we're going to watch the final episode and that's going to change. But right now, Jack is sort of a mystical character who just floats in, and Charlie's the main character of Lost. And I think that could be why people didn't like this either, because this episode treats Charlie as if he's the main character of Lost. And I think a lot of people thought he was just, he's the side character. Why are you spending so much time on him?
Well, and meanwhile, though, like Charlie gets, this is now outside of the full experience, but I think Charlie's story is maybe the best one, or one of the best ones, where it's like, we get if you speak Stephen King's The Dark Tower, he's our Eddie Dean. And Eddie Dean was my favorite character in that story as well.
The other thing people may ding this episode for is the dream sequences, which are a bit of a parody of what dream sequences are like.
Yeah, they're also religiously coded in a way that I think might have annoyed people.
Maybe. 2006
or 2006. Yeah. So we're kind of at in the middle of anti-religiosity at that time.
I mean, and you could say like, oh, well, the only reason that they show up on the beach as angels is because the heroine is inside statues of Mary. And that just, to me, that's like, great. Why'd they put the heroine in statues of Mary then, right? Like, obviously we're injecting religion into the story with that to begin with. And Echo being a priest, and then we have to baptize and all of that. Yeah, you're kind of right. Like, there's a lot of religion to that side of the story.
Well, and I will say that the very first vignette, seeming to be a childhood memory that turns into a dream sequence, I thought was well crafted. It subverts later dream sequences, because now we know to be on guard against dream sequences.
Yeah, they're still a little cringy, but I get what you're saying.
Right. But because of the amount of real estate spent on that particular story, the rest of the characters kind of have to become one-note bits that pop in, do their one line, and leave. Sawyer gets the worst of the treatment.
And this is our first interaction with Sawyer on the full experience, right?
Yeah. I think we got one. No, I think we saw him
in the pilot. We had a brief moment with him, but I don't think we saw him at all in the previous episode, did we?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought he did one mean comment. It doesn't matter. The point is, there's no indication that Sawyer has the amount of charm and sees the growth that, for a good season, he's the protagonist. He's the most interesting character in the entire show. But so far, we don't get any of that in the full experience.
Yeah. Also, I found it funny that Yoonjin speaks English perfectly now.
Yeah. I remember when that happened, I remember thinking, oh, wow, they must have taught her really fast.
Yeah. And so yeah, that was a jump for us. They mentioned the tailies. I don't think
Yeah.
I know that Ana Lucia is a tailie. I know that Libby is a tailie. They just mentioned the tailies. I guess maybe Hurley says that tailie Libby.
Which again, we get an adorable Beauty and the Beast kind of
Oh yeah, I love
thing.
that story.
You know, lovable Sasquatch doesn't know how to approach cute girl, and then meanwhile she does that awesome moment that we as viewers love, where it's like we feel his anxiety and we fear he's screwing it up, and then her gentle guiding hand says, "This is how courtship works," and then
Yeah.
you know, I loved it.
Also, Claire had her baby. You know, last time we saw Claire, she was.
Well, and again, like if we're just doing the full experience, like the pregnant lady made a baby. I guess they've been there
Yeah,
for a
that's
minute.
her baby there. Cool. Yeah.
Bit of a hard left turn when it turns out that doing laundry means literally at a laundromat on the island.
That's what I can't really wrap my head around is like the hatch is such a huge part of Lost that I fully accepted it the minute it came on screen, and I shouldn't have. If I was
Oh, I
doing
did
the full
not.
experience
As a matter-
purely, I should have been like, where did that come from?
Well, so when I encountered it, it was so jarring that I, had my full experience hat, and I was like, oh, wait, obviously they got like boats and, there was time travel. So obviously, like the bar for weird had already been reset with
Because
time
of the last
travel,
episode.
quantum
Yeah.
things.
Which
and so as a
technically
result,
is a
it was like,
later
oh,
episode,
so I
but
bet
sure,
some
yeah.
science people were sciencing, which
Yeah.
is exactly right. Ooh,
Which is exactly
shouts out to the Dharma Initiative playing cards that they were doing when
Yeah.
they were learning blackjack.
Yep. And then, we get to hear Locke speak for the first time in this episode. In fact, the first time we see him, he's still silent. And we're like, oh, I guess that guy doesn't talk. And then, of course, he talks a lot by the end of the episode and keeps the heroin, because you never know when you might need some heroin.
Well, and what's interesting is he very clearly, literally takes that storyline and puts it on the shelf. Where it's just like, it is resolved, but there may
can
be
take
a
it
moment
back
someone
down.
gets injured, and we don't want any of you commenters to be thinking, oh, it would have been nice to have a painkiller, like, I don't know, heroin.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, but they feel safe at that point.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm with you. Like, this definitely is one of those situations where it being the worst episode is contextually dependent, but in the full experience sense, great episode, and maybe didn't give me as much of the picture as I might want from our third of 4 episodes, but satisfying nonetheless, and filled in a few gaps and corners here and there.
Yeah. How did you like this one compared to the others? I think I might have liked this one more than the highest rated one, or
Yeah,
maybe close
it's pretty
on
par. To me, they're on par. They were both draggy in places. I think this one was draggy in a few more places, but it always kept me moving along. I was always wanting to know what would happen next. I was never to that point where like, is this thing over yet? It was more like, yeah, okay, stop messing around with that. I want to get to the next bit of Charlie's story. Like, what happened there? And I thought they did a good job with the pacing that way.
So we are headed into the last episode, the literal last episode of the show. And at this moment, with 3 of the 4 down, I can't think of maybe since it's up there with The Shield in terms of 3 for 3. Can you think of any I guess subjectively I don't know that we've ever ranked full experiences. That would be a fun special.
Yeah, potentially. I hate doing that though, because it's like, ranking fruits and vegetables. They're
Well, but I mean, we could pick the one that works the best with the full experience.
I don't know if this one's going to work well with the full experience. It's been enjoyable to watch these episodes, but I am skeptical that we are going to have the Lost experience because it is so intertwining and weaving and portioning out bits of the mystery and answers along the way. I don't think we got a lot of that sense from this episode. We certainly got it in the pilot, and we got a good fair bit of it with Faraday and all of that in the second episode we watched. Maybe this finale, which by the way will be parts 1 and 2 because they aired them both at the same time, so we will unequivocally watch both parts. When we watch the end, maybe that will be like, oh, okay, we pull in enough of those mysteries as we're coming to the end that it'll make up for that. Maybe it will work really well. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is the next episode. The End, Season 6, Episode 18, first aired May 23rd, 2010. As I said, they are syndicated as parts 1 and 2, but they both aired on May 23rd. So we'll be watching them all as one long episode. And if you would like to watch along with us, watch that one and come back next time on The Full Experience to hear us discuss it. If you are curious, like, what are you going to watch after Lost? We are curious too, and there's a place where we talk about that. You can listen in on those conversations if you're a patron. It's called After Talk, and you get it delivered exclusively to you as a patron. Patreon.com/cordkillers. We will be back again for The Full Experience next time. Talk to you then.
Yeah.
Whoopsie doodle. Actually, that would be implying I made a mistake. And just whoopee.
Hooray.
Hooray.
All right. Live folks, thanks for joining us on this special Sunday edition.
Bye, live
Yeah.
folks.
That was worth the extra effort. I'm glad we did that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Brian. I know that's a scramble to do.
All right. Bye,
Man,
folks.
this is the pro